Divine help is not something that descends just because we desire it. It doesn't come because our voices are loud or our pain is deep. It comes with conditions, unshakable, non-negotiable conditions that are clearly laid out in the Quran and the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And yet, time and again, we find ourselves crying out, where is the help of Allah? Without looking in the mirror and asking the harder question, are we the kind of people who deserve His help? Allah's help comes when the heart is sincere, when the actions match the words, and when the soul stands upright even when the world is collapsing. It doesn't come to a people who are divided, disobedient, or careless with the responsibilities Allah placed on their shoulders. Look back at the early Muslims. The Battle of Badr was not won because they were strong. They were outnumbered, under-equipped, and weak by worldly standards. But their hearts were united. Their trust in Allah was real. Their obedience wasn't conditional on convenience. And so Allah sent angels to fight alongside them. Now contrast that with us today. Our masjids are full on Fridays, but our streets are full of injustice. We cry for Palestine, for Syria, for Kashmir, but many of us live our lives with barely a trace of Islamic values guiding our decisions. We cheat, lie, judge, consume haram, and ignore our duties to our families, our neighbors, our communities. We scroll past suffering with a heavy heart, then keep scrolling. We've made Islam something we wear when it's comfortable, not something we live when it's hard. Do we honestly think Allah's help is cheap? Help from Allah is an honor. It's a gift, but like any gift, it's given to those who have earned it, not by being perfect, but by really striving for righteousness. It's not about being sinless, it's about being sincere. It's about repenting when we fall, standing back up with humility and committing to do better. If we're living lives disconnected from the Quran, from prayer, from truth, how can we expect Allah to change our condition when we haven't changed what's in our hearts? The Quran is clear. Indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. This is not just a motivational quote. It's divine law, spiritual gravity. You want elevation? Then clean your soul, unite your hearts, live with taqwa. Stop waiting for the Ummah to rise while you remain seated. We need to stop thinking of divine help like a switch we flip when we're desperate. It's a covenant, a contract, and that contract is clear. Fulfill your side and Allah will fulfill His. Turn to Him in sincerity, and He will come to you at a speed you can't imagine. But right now, we're turning to Him with our lips, while turning away from Him with our lives. We're begging for help, while disobeying the one we're begging from. And this disconnect, this hypocrisy, is what delays the help we seek. So if you're wondering why Allah isn't helping us, maybe the better question is, are we helping ourselves? Are we helping each other? Are we living in a way that invites divine mercy or divine wrath? Allah's help is real, it's powerful, and it's near, but it comes to those who deserve it. Not because He needs us to be worthy, but because He loves us too much to give us a gift we'll waste. Want the help of Allah? Then live like someone who means it. One of the greatest tragedies of our time is the state of disunity in the Muslim world. A people once known for their brotherhood, their solidarity, their unmatched loyalty to each other, have now become fragmented, splintered, and in many cases, openly hostile toward one another. And while the bombs fall on our brothers and sisters in Gaza, while the children cry out in hunger, while our lands are stolen and our dignity trampled, many of us are still arguing about race, madhab, nationality, language, and leadership. This is not just a shame, it is a disaster. Because disunity doesn't just weaken us politically or socially, it weakens us spiritually. And when that spiritual bond is broken, don't expect divine help to descend. Allah tells us in the Quran, and hold firmly to the rope of Allah all together, and do not become divided. This isn't a suggestion, it's a command, because division is a disease. It eats from the inside. And when it spreads, it doesn't just collapse empires, it destroys hearts. Look at the state of our Ummah today. Countries who share the same faith, the same Qibla, the same book, cannot even agree to speak to each other. Leaders with power choose silence while innocent blood floods the streets. Communities boycott one another over trivial differences in fiqh, while ignoring the cries of orphans and the desperation of the oppressed. Masjids compete with each other instead of cooperating. Muslims online tear each other down instead of lifting each other up. This isn't Islam, this is ego wearing the mask of religiosity. The early Muslims understood this. They knew that their strength didn't come from their numbers or their wealth. It came from their unity, from their willingness to stand shoulder to shoulder, regardless of tribe or status. Bilal, a black man once enslaved, stood next to Abu Bakr, a nobleman of Quraysh. Salman the Persian stood with Ammar the Yemeni and Suhaib the Roman. They were one body. When one limb hurt, the rest responded. That is the prophetic model. That is the sunnah we abandoned. Disunity isn't just a crack in the wall, it's an invitation to collapse. The enemies of Islam don't fear our numbers. They fear our unity. Because when Muslims are united under a common purpose, nothing can stop them. But when we're busy fighting each other, we're too distracted to defend the truth, too splintered to stand against injustice. And don't think this is just about leaders or nations. This disunity begins with us. In our homes, in our communities, in our hearts. Every time we belittle another Muslim, every time we curse another group, every time we assume the worst, we add to the fracture, we widen the gap, we make the Ummah weaker. Unity doesn't mean uniformity. It doesn't mean we all have to think the same or follow the same school of thought. Islam has room for diversity of thought, but no room for hatred. You can disagree without division. You can differ without destruction. The problem isn't that we have differences. The problem is that we let those differences define our relationships. Ask yourself, are you a bridge between Muslims or a barrier? Are you someone who brings hearts together or someone who drives people apart? Because unity is not a slogan, it's a discipline. It's a choice we make every single day to overlook what divides us and cling to what unites us. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasul Allah. We beg for Allah's help, but turn our backs on our own brothers and sisters. And then we wonder why the Ummah is weak. The answer is staring us in the mirror. If we want to see victory, we need to fix the fractures. If we want divine intervention, we must restore divine connection, not just with Allah, but with each other. The Ummah will rise again, but only when we rise together. We often speak about injustice from outside forces, colonizers, occupiers, tyrants who attack Islam and harm Muslims. And yes, those enemies exist and they are real. But there's a far more dangerous, more painful kind of injustice that we rarely want to confront. The kind that comes from within. The kind that is committed by Muslims against other Muslims. It's the betrayal that rots us from the inside. It's the corruption, the hypocrisy, the cruelty we show to one another while we raise our hands and ask, where is Allah's help? You see, Allah is just. His name is Al-Adl. He does not support oppression, not when it comes from non-Muslims, and not when it comes from us. We sometimes imagine that being Muslim gives us automatic protection, automatic victory, automatic status. But Islam is not a badge you wear. It's a path you walk. And when we become oppressors ourselves, we fall out of the shade of divine mercy and into the heat of divine justice. How many Muslim governments today imprison innocent people, silence scholars, steal wealth, and sell their own people for the approval of worldly powers? How many leaders speak of Islam in their speeches while doing the exact opposite behind closed doors? How many communities protect abusers, gossip about the vulnerable, or chase status while ignoring the poor, the converts, the orphans? How many of us in our own lives cheat others, lie, judge, or use Islam as a tool for ego rather than a light for guidance? This is not a small problem. This is not just a few bad apples. This is a disease, and it's spreading. When Muslims oppress each other, it breaks the sacred bond of Ummah. It creates a spiritual wound. That wound is visible in every headline of every crisis we read about. We are bleeding, not only from the weapons of our enemies, but from the knives we turn on each other. The Prophet Muhammad SAW warned us of this. He said that the Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hands others are safe. But today, too many Muslims aren't safe from slander, from betrayal, from corruption, from harm that comes not from outsiders, but from their own brothers and sisters. And here's the bitter truth. Sometimes the delay in Allah's help isn't because He has forgotten us, but because we have forgotten His commands. We oppress and expect mercy. We betray and expect loyalty. We ignore His laws and expect His support. That's not how it works. The Quran is filled with stories of nations who were destroyed not by external enemies, but because of the injustice they allowed to grow inside. The people of Ad, the people of Thamud, even Bani Israel, they weren't punished because they were weak. They were punished because they were unjust, because they knew the truth and still chose ego. We are no different if we continue on this path. But there is hope. The doors of repentance are still wide open. The moment we decide to return to justice, Allah's help begins to return to us. The moment we stop hurting each other, stop selling each other out, and start standing for truth, not just in public, but in private, not just in protest, but in policies change, begins. Justice isn't just for courts and governments. It starts with the individual. With you, with me, with how we treat our families, how we run our businesses, how we speak about others, how we forgive, how we stand up even when it costs us. If we want Allah to remove the hand of the oppressor from our necks, we must first remove the oppression from our own hearts. Until then, we will remain stuck in this cycle, begging for divine help while turning away from divine command. Justice begins at home. If we want the world to change, we must start from within. When we see suffering, especially on the scale of what's happening in Palestine, our hearts naturally cry out. We feel helpless, angry, broken. We turn to the skies and ask why. We make dua, we protest, we post. But in the quiet moments, when the emotion fades, a more serious question remains. Are we truly passing the test that this suffering represents? Because, make no mistake, what we're witnessing isn't just a tragedy, it's a test. And not just for the people under siege, but for every single one of us who claims to be Muslim. This is the test of faith and action. It's easy to say we believe. It's easy to say Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel when we're scrolling through headlines or sitting comfortably in our homes. But belief is not just something you say with your tongue. It's something proven by what you does, especially when the world falls apart. Faith without action is hollow. Dua without effort is incomplete. We can raise our hands until they ache, but if our legs don't move, if our hearts don't change, if our habits don't shift, then we're not really answering the test that Allah has put in front of us. We're just hoping to pass without studying. We want the reward without the struggle. We want change without responsibility. Allah tells us in the Quran, do people think they will be left alone to say, we believe, and not be tested? Tests are the measure of sincerity. And this global crisis, this endless suffering is a test not just for those living it, but for those watching it. What are we doing with the safety, the privilege, the platform that we have? Some of us see these horrors and feel despair. Others feel motivated. But the question is, what comes next? Will we let the emotion fade after a trending hashtag ends? Or will we allow that pain to become fuel? A fire that pushes us toward meaningful change in our homes, in our work, in our communities, and yes, in our connection to Allah? Because faith isn't meant to be passive, it's meant to move you. To build something in your character that says, I can't look away. Whether that means giving money, raising awareness, standing against oppression, or simply making a sincere effort to be a better Muslim, something has to change. If you've witnessed suffering and it hasn't moved you to act, then you haven't passed the test. You've just watched it. Action doesn't always mean something grand. Sometimes it's making istighfar at Fajr. Sometimes it's calling your local representative. Sometimes it's educating your children about justice. Sometimes it's cutting out the haram from your income so that your du'as stop being blocked. Every bit counts. The smallest sincere effort is heavier than the loudest empty gesture. And here's the thing, this test is not about us being perfect. Allah doesn't expect perfection. He expects effort. He expects a heart that feels, hands that move, and intentions that are pure. He expects us to wake up, to stop being numb, and to realize that these events are not just news. They are signs. They are wake-up calls. And if we ignore them, we're not just failing those who are suffering, we're failing ourselves. Faith and action are two wings of the same bird. You can't fly with just one. So as we cry for Palestine, for Sudan, for Yemen, for every corner of the Ummah under fire, let that cry echo in our actions. Let it shake our habits. Let it change our priorities. Let it push us closer to Allah and closer to each other. Because this is the test, and the world is watching. But more importantly, Allah is suffering has a way of shaking the soul awake. It strips away comfort, routine, and distraction. It forces us to confront the rawness of life and the reality of our own existence. When we see images of children under rubble, mothers crying over their sons, entire families wiped out in an instant, we're not just witnessing pain, we're being called, not with words, but with a divine message written in heartbreak. It says, wake up. We live in a time where it's easy to become numb to violence, numb to injustice, numb to faith. Our lives are busy, our screens are full, and our hearts are often distracted. We scroll past suffering like it's just another headline, another post. But suffering, real suffering, demands more than a glance. It demands reflection. It demands a response. And for the believer, it demands a return to Allah. Throughout the Quran, Allah uses pain to purify, not to punish. He tells us that hardship is a means of drawing closer to Him, that sometimes we must be broken so we can finally bend in sujood, that sometimes comfort clouds the soul, and it takes loss to remember what truly matters. Allah says, We will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good news to the patient. These trials are not a sign that Allah has abandoned us. They are signs that He wants to awaken us. But here's the true suffering. It can either awaken or harden. It can either turn us toward Allah or away from Him. And the difference lies in how we respond. If we allow pain to humble us, to soften us, to make us more compassionate, more prayerful, more conscious, then it becomes a mercy. But if we drown in anger, in despair, in blame, and forget our Creator in the process, then we've missed the entire purpose of the test. The suffering of our brothers and sisters around the world is not just their test, it's ours. It's a mirror held up to our hearts. When we witness their strength, their resilience, their unwavering belief, even in the darkest nights, it exposes how fragile our faith has become in times of ease. It reminds us that while they suffer in the body, we are suffering in the soul, and theirs might be cleaner than ours in the sight of Allah. So the next time your heart aches from what you see, don't just stop at emotion. Let that ache guide you back to your prayer mat. Let it cleanse your heart of arrogance, laziness, and heedlessness. Let it move you to act, to give, to speak truth, to live with sincerity. Because every tear has a message, every tragedy carries a lesson, and every ounce of pain is an invitation from Allah, not just to feel, but to wake up. Victory is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the Muslim mind today. We associate it with instant results, liberation, triumph, the end of suffering, and the punishment of oppressors. And yes, victory is promised. Allah never breaks His promise. But what we often fail to grasp is this: victory will come, but it will not come on our timeline or our terms. It comes on Allah's panuit, and Allah's timeline is not driven by emotion. It's driven by wisdom, justice, and a higher purpose that we may not fully understand in the moment. We live in an age of immediacy. Everything is quick news, reactions, gratification, and we expect divine justice to arrive with that same speed. But if you study the stories in the Quran, you'll notice something profound. Victory was never immediate. Musa A.S. and Bani Israel were oppressed for years before Pharaoh was drowned. Yusuf A.S. was betrayed, imprisoned, and forgotten for years before he saw the light of power and vindication. Even our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ endured boycott, assassination attempts, the murder of companions, and exile before victory finally came in waves. Why? Because true victory isn't just about changing the external world. It's about transforming us on the inside. It's about building resilience, faith, obedience, and trust. Allah doesn't just want to change our circumstances. He wants to prepare our hearts to carry the responsibility that comes with victory. If He gave it to us too soon, we'd either misuse it or not appreciate it. So when we don't see change happening immediately, and the bombs still fall, the lands are still occupied, and the innocent still suffer, it doesn't mean Allah is absent. It means the process is still unfolding. It means we are still being shaped, purified, and tested. Victory is promised, but it is earned through sacrifice, discipline, unity, and a return to Allah in sincerity. It requires us to stop demanding miracles while living heedlessly. It demands that we deserve it. So don't give up, because the world hasn't changed yet. Change yourself first. Stay firm. Stay sincere. Stay connected to Allah. Because when the victory does command, it will be worth every tear, every prayer, every effort you made in silence, but only when we stop expecting it on our terms and start trusting in His.